culture development firm based in Cleveland, Ohio. We've been an NTMA National Associate for over a year now. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about your organization's culture and ask the question, if you're having trouble with productivity, is it a symptom or is it a root cause of the culture that exists right now? If anyone has met me at last year's fall conference in St. Louis or at the Plant Manager Roundtable in January in Charlotte or the Emerging Leaders Conference this year in Chicago, it's good talking to you again. If some of you have never met me or if you've never heard of CultureShoc or me, welcome to the webinar. First, I'm going to tell you that it takes a certain level of humility to even attend a webinar, questioning potentially if your culture is lacking productivity, or to ask the question, could there be more we're doing to be more productive? I'm also going to tell you that I don't have all the answers. What I'm going to share with you today is some experiences that I've had working with manufacturing organizations, in other industries, in my own teams and jobs that I've been a part of, as well as some stories that I've heard from clients and from friends in the professional arena. And number one, most of all, I want to bring you guys a lot of value. So feel free to type. You should see a chat box as part of your GoToWebinar control panel. Feel free to type in questions if you have them along the way. If I catch them along the way, I'll try to answer them then. If not, I'll try to get to any of your questions at the end. But again, it's about 2:05 Eastern time on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon here in Cleveland. We've got the Republican National Convention in town this week, and everybody's pretty excited to be a Clevelander right now. So thanks again, and let's get started. Is your culture killing productivity? So a couple things I want to go over real quick. If you're wondering, do we have runway to be doing better? Why are we not producing more on each machine, on each line, in each part of the plant? Some of these might be the reasons why. So you could be killing productivity, and first I'm going to just list them and then kind of unpack each of them. You might be killing productivity as a leader or as just an employee if your organization or your culture has the following. No communicated plan or vision. A lot of organizations have a plan, they have a vision, but they haven't communicated it to everybody. You might be killing productivity if you've got no goals or a map to execute the plan or vision that you do have. If you just have meetings for the sake of meetings. If you have no clear communication chain within the organization. If you lack individual growth and development resources for your people, or even for your emerging leaders, or even for the C-suite of your organization. You might be killing productivity if you have an unwillingness to change for the better as a company. And you might be killing productivity if you don't tell any stories of greatness, if you don't look for those stories, and you don't recognize when greatness happens within your organization. So let's get started here with communicated plan and vision. To frame everything, when we talk about productivity, we talk about it through the lens of emotional engagement. And if anyone's heard us speak before, I'm sure you've heard us mention emotional engagement. And what that means to us is employees tying in their emotions, the reason that they exist, the reason that they get up in the morning, tying that into what they're doing at their job. If someone's emotionally engaged, they're not just coming to work just to get a paycheck or just coming to work to clock in exactly 7 and leave at exactly 3:30 on a normal shift. No, they are tied to a little bit higher purpose, and they're tied to the why behind they're there. So if you want to have the most productive culture possible, you've got to have a bunch of people within the organization who are emotionally engaged. Yeah, sure, you can be a leader and you can fire people at the first sign of trouble. You can watch over people's shoulder every second of the day and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. You can yell and scream and pull your hair out all you want, and you can still have an organization. You may even have a successful organization. But damn, that's a frustrating way to live, It's going to give you a lot of gray hair. Your hair is going to fall out, and you're not going to be as happy as you want to be as a leader. And we've seen companies that are at the top of the mountain, the ones that innovate, the ones that have people that really want to be there, the ones that feel like a family. Those are the companies where the people are emotionally engaged. And to get to emotional engagement, you've got to tie in to autonomy, mastery, and purpose. You've got to carve out a path where those three things are prevalent and are the rule rather than the exception in the organization. So autonomy, to us, autonomy is the ability to do your work without somebody looking over your shoulder. It's about empowering your people. For me, autonomy is when you say to an employee or someone that you lead, hey, I want you to own this. I want you to take this and run with it. Are you willing to do that? And if you get that person's consent to do that, that's giving them autonomy to just take something and run. Mastery, that's where you give them the tools and resources to be the best in the world at that job. It doesn't matter if they're cleaning the floors or the toilets or if they're the CEO of the organization or anyone in between. Everyone's got the ability to master the specific position that they're in. And that's some of the mastery is investing resources, investing time coaching and mentoring those people. Is letting them figure things out on their own, letting them spend that extra time and finding people that really want to be the best at what they do. And then purpose. This is really, especially with millennials, this is important. It's tying in the purpose to why they exist. What are they doing that's going to have an effect bigger than just, okay, I'm packing boxes today, or I'm cleaning floors today, or I'm going to run this machine today. What's going to happen when you run that machine? For example, if you're in an aerospace industry, tell them the story. And this can work for attracting talent as well as getting people emotionally engaged. If I'm running a machine in the aerospace industry, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when I make that part? And then when that part eventually, becomes part of an airplane, you're not just in a shop or a plant grinding some metal. No, you're actually creating something that's going to keep people safe, and that's going to keep families and children, adults, friends, loved ones. It's going to keep them safe when they fly, and you're going to advance the aerospace industry at the same time. Same goes with medical. If you're manufacturing medical pieces, you're not just grinding metal, you're not just looking at a screen or pushing buttons on a machine. You're creating something that down the road is going to make an impact, potentially could lead to cures for diseases. It could keep loved ones safe, could, treat people who are sick. The same goes with, if you don't want to think of purpose in such grandiose terms, your purpose could be as simple as, hey, I've got a job, I've got a family to feed, I'm really passionate about being a good father, or a good husband, or a good wife or daughter. My purpose is, hey, I'm going to get up every day, I'm going to work as hard as I can at this job so that I can create a better life for my family. So if you want emotionally engaged people and you want the most productive culture possible, regardless of what industry we're in, you want employees that feel autonomous, they feel like they have the ability to master their job, and they've got purpose. So next slide here is, if you want to create that vision or that plan, maybe you have a plan, maybe you haven't communicated with everybody. Here's a few things that you may want to ask yourself, and you may want to answer for everybody in your organization if you want people to be as productive as they can be. People want to know, where are we going as a company? What is the purpose of my department? Is our product line going to be here in 10 years? Is it going to shift? Am I going to be here? Do you want this team to be the same size we are? Do you want to consolidate people? Do you want to grow this organization? These are questions as to where are we going as a company. I've heard a phrase before is, whether you know where you're going to go or you don't, you're probably going to get there either way. If we know where we're going to go and we've got a vision and you explain that to people, they can be more productive and they can create goals against that vision. But if there is no vision, then you're just kind of shooting in the dark all over the place, not really going anywhere. Ask yourself that question. You as a leader, what do you want? Do you want a big organization? Do you want to take over other organizations? Do you want to acquire? Do you want to merge? Do you want to expand your plant to more space or different offices? That kind of stuff is exciting to people, and it can help them feel like, hey, it's more than just a job. We're going somewhere here. If I hitch my wagon to this train, we're not just running in place. This isn't a hamster wheel. The more we can tell people that, the more we can explain, hey, here's the vision for our organization. Here's where we want to go. The more people are tied in, the more people are engaged, and they actually want to help, and they want to be more productive, and they want to hit goals. So the last question there is just what I've been talking about. Have you been shouting it from the rooftops at your organization? When's the last time you had an all-hands meeting with your whole company and told them, hey, here's what we want to do. In 3 years, we want to be in a different location, or we want to have 2 more offices, or I want to promote one of you to take over as plant manager, or I want to promote a couple people. I'm looking for a couple good people to start up a new plant somewhere. That's the kind of stuff that people want to hear as employees, and it doesn't matter what their pay grade is. I've been in situations like that. I've worked in a plant before, in my teens, right after high school, and there was never any communication as to what's being done with these materials that we're making, with the bottles that we're filling, with the drums that we're filling and loading on the semi-trucks. And are we doing well as an organization or not? Are we struggling? Do we have a lot of orders coming in? That's the kind of stuff that would have made me a lot more engaged and made me probably spend another summer or stick it out a little bit longer in the job that I was in at the time. So another piece of that vision is not just where are we going, but communicating to your people how we're going to get there. So how are we going to get there? So this is the stuff that your employees are dying to know, and they want to contribute to it. How also do they fit in to that plan and that vision? So when we talk about execution, a lot of execution is setting goals and executing on those goals. Another word for goals could be metrics. Some people call them KPIs, key performance indicators. There's all kinds of words for goals or ways to measure progress. But more important even than creating goals is figuring out how to get people engaged around those goals. One of the ways to do that is to ask people, what do you think you need to do? If you have one-on-one meetings, or if you're in small group settings or product line huddles or whatever, how does each person fit into that? What's it going to take for everybody to win? And how does each person own a piece of that and continue to work towards that? Just some other options for how we're going to get to where we want to go. Is it going to take new orders and customers? We could be asking our people, do you know anybody? Do you know anybody in this area? Do you think we should be pursuing this organization? Based on what you've made, can we replicate that in a different area of the plant, or can we replicate that for 50 new customers? So communicating who are we pursuing and why to people, that's going to make them feel like they're in the loop a lot more, and it's going to make them more engaged and more productive. Are we planning on merging with another organization, acquiring another organization, or even potentially being acquired by an organization? This is stuff people want to know. And when these M&A activities happen without us communicating them to our employees, they start to wonder, am I going to be fired? Is everybody going to be fired? They start making assumptions, and typically when we make assumptions, they tend to be very, very negative. We don't tend to assume the positive in things. Are we going to make a pivot in our product lines or equipment? Meaning, are we going to probably scrap this product line, or scrap this machine and try something new? As soon as you know that as a leader and you feel like it's appropriate to share it with the employees, the more open and honest we can be, the better, so that they're not wondering, why is that thing sitting in the corner? Or we've got this new machine, why aren't we using it? So that's the kind of stuff people want to know. Are we going to have to make people changes to get to where we want to go? So does it mean, are we going to have to cut the staff in half? Are we going to have to hire 5 new employees this quarter? And if we do that, who's going to train them? What jobs are they going to take? Are we going to have to hire more millennials? Are we going to measure people by performance better? People want to know when that stuff is coming on the horizon so that they can prepare for it, just like we would as leaders. And the feedback loop. How are we gonna keep our people updated on all this stuff, on all the plan and how we're gonna execute on the plan? We've got to figure out a way to keep people updated, whether it's at all hands meetings, it could be one-on-one reviews, could be a memo, could be a one Friday over beers at the plant or the shop. We're gonna let people know, hey, here's the state of our company and here's what we're expecting for the next 30 or the next 60 or the next 90 days. All right, let's talk about goals for just a minute here. Talked about a plan, vision, and then executing on them. A lot of people throw around big-time words when it comes to goals. They talk about being smart, specific, measurable, attainable, blah, blah, blah. They talk about, the best ways to set goals, how long they need to be for, whatever. The most important three things that I've ever seen as it relates to goals are figuring out, number one, what are we trying to accomplish? So this could be weekly goals because you set a vision and you want a certain number of production or you want a certain number of efficiency from your employees or from your machines. Set that goal as what are we accomplishing here? What do we want to accomplish? Always set a date, by when, and then who's responsible. When we talk about who's responsible, we always talk about single ownership. If you're the leader and there's a production goal, and ultimately the amount that your team produces is your responsibility, then you've got to be the owner of that. And you've got to hold people accountable as the leader to accomplishing that goal and getting it by the deadline. If it's the responsibility of somebody within your team, and they solely can control it or they've got a couple direct reports underneath them, that person has to be the single owner. We talk so much about if two people own something, then nobody owns it. The less we can point fingers in our organizations because everybody takes ownership for their own duties and responsibilities, and the leaders have to take responsibility for their people. So speaking of that ownership and that goal component, I want to give you a quick book recommendation. If anyone hasn't read this, this is a badass book. It's by two members of SEAL Team 3, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. It's called Extreme Ownership. And I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but essentially my takeaways from this book is that there's really never any room for excuses. If you're a leader and you're looking for excuses, that means that you've somehow failed your people and that you need to ask them how to help. You need to do better. If you're leading others and one of them is screwing up, it's either because you didn't lead them well enough, or it's because you hired the wrong person, or it's because there's a skills gap or a training gap, which falls on you as a leader. And if I'm exhibiting extreme ownership as an employee, it's my responsibility to ask the leader when I need help. It's my responsibility to try to find that information that I need. It's my responsibility to hit my goals, regardless of how difficult things are, regardless if I run out of time. So in extreme ownership, when it's pure, there are no excuses. You put your company first. That helps take some of that subjective element out of it. If I'm going to make a decision, and if it's got to be a tough personnel decision, I've got to look at what's best for the company. It's not what's best for my friend within the organization, or not even what's best for a relative because they just want to keep a job if they're not performing. So we've always got to keep that organization and the team or the unit first, and it should help us make decisions. Because at the end of the day, we should be able to sleep at night if we said, hey, we made the best decision we could with the information we had for the betterment of the organization. Because our organizations, when everyone's emotionally engaged, everyone's putting the company first, not your own ego, not your own wishes. And that goes right into the third component there, looking at yourself first. A lot of our natural inclinations, and mine included sometimes, when something goes wrong, I want to blame my computer, blame the Wi-Fi. I want to blame people that didn't get me what I needed. I want to blame prospects because they won't get back to me fast enough. when in reality there's almost always something I could have done that, setting better expectations with prospects could be, figuring out a new way to get on the internet. Whatever my challenge is, I've got to look at myself first and figure out what can I be doing better instead of always pointing the finger at other people. If we had a country of people exhibiting extreme ownership, there'd be so much less finger pointing and so much more unity. Now, we talked about meetings for the sake of meetings. I like this little cartoon here. And I want to tell you quickly about the worst meeting that I've ever had. At a previous organization about 6 years ago, the company had a partner that was coming in and looking to pitch some new ideas. This was part of a multi-day retreat for the company. First of all, this partner comes in, only about half of their people, they had about 5 people, got introduced to the rest of our group. None of us got introduced to them. The meeting went about 2.5 hours. We got nothing accomplished. There was one guy with their group, seemed to be staring at everybody the entire time, trying to either intimidate us or, I don't know, maybe he was a professional body language reader, but it made everybody uncomfortable. So it was an awkward situation. There wasn't a lot of connection going on. There didn't seem to be anything that needed to be solved. There was discussion and roundtabling and PowerPoint presentation, but really no reason and no value was being exchanged there that couldn't have been exchanged on a conference call for a half hour, or couldn't have been exchanged in a proposal that we either say yes or no on. So that was the worst meeting experience that I've ever had. The best meeting experience I've had has happened so many times in the last few years, since working for CultureShoc, since helping organizations get done what they want to get done. If anyone doesn't know, our organization's motto and number one core value is be a buffalo. You see a buffalo up in the top right hand of your screen, and all that means to us is running into challenges, addressing issues head on, not wasting time and just solving things, addressing that elephant in the room. Solve issues, don't waste time, get things done so that we can go out and we can innovate, we can be productive, we can create, we can make more money as organizations and as individuals. But we do realize meetings can be extremely productive if you're charging head on into those issues and opportunities, if you're setting dates and deadlines and single owners for activities, and you're actually getting things done and moving your organization forward. So for us, I have already broken rule number 1 of the most effective meetings you can possibly have. Now, we started at about 2:04 today, Eastern Time, and normally I would make the excuse that I was trying to give people a little extra time to join the webinar, but if I'm exhibiting extreme ownership, there are no excuses. So that's my bad. We started the meeting late, but I'll tell you what, we're going to end on time. The best meetings ask the questions, really, why are you there? Are you there to connect with people? In most cases, yes, even if it's on a very brief level. Almost always you should be there to solve issues and make decisions and then leave. If we have meetings where we're just sitting there kicking the can around, round tabling everything, saying, okay, let's form a committee and we'll decide this later, let's talk about this later, or let's table that, and not making any decisions or solving any issues, then what's the point? You might as well be having drinks with your friends or having dinner. There's nothing wrong with that, but if we're going to be meeting during time that could be productive and we're having unproductive meetings, that's counterintuitive. It doesn't make any sense. Number 3, if you're done early with a meeting, end early. Just because even this webinar says 2 to 3 o'clock, if we're done at 2:42, there's no reason for me to just stall for the next 18 minutes. If you're done early with a meeting, end early and continue to be productive after that. The next one's a tough one. Someone's time is better spent elsewhere. Don't have them in a meeting. Now, this has happened to me a couple times in the last 6 months where I was part of a meeting and it was more about software or things that really are not in my focus. Specifically, it's not the best use of my time. I've been asked, hey, would you mind not attending this meeting so that you can spend that time elsewhere? And it really takes a leader who's really thinking about the betterment of the organization. And it takes a person who's emotionally engaged and who's able to put their ego in their back pocket enough to say, you know what, you're right, for the betterment of the company or the team, it doesn't make sense for me to be in this meeting. And it's not a personal attack at somebody because you don't think they're a valuable asset. Sometimes you don't need to have 9 people in a meeting when 3 or 4 people would do. And the last thing is participant feedback. You know, a lot of you, if you've heard us speak, you've heard us talk about the meeting rating. Every week at our internal staff meeting, we talk about, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's go around the room. How effective was this use of your time? If you can't answer a 9 or a 10, you've got to give us one reason why. Sometimes it's because, hey, one person was late, somebody was on their phone for half the time, somebody took a call in the middle of a meeting, so I'm at a 6 out of 10. Sometimes it's a 9 for me because we were extremely effective, and I had this thing that was keeping me up at night, and I feel like it finally got addressed and finally got solved. So it was a 9 for me today. The more participant feedback, especially open and honest feedback that we can get about our meetings, the better we can correct things that are not going well, and the more successful our meetings are going to be. So how do we combat the clear communication chain issue? Well, a lot of times within organizations, people who are not emotionally engaged, people who are not productive, it's because they feel like they don't know who they can go to when they've got a question or when they've got a comment or when they got something that somebody needs to know. So ask yourself these questions as leaders and imagine yourselves as employees asking themselves this question. Hey, if I have an idea, who do I tell this idea to? You know, you've heard a lot probably of these tech companies in Silicon Valley that they have things like 20% days where they spend 20% of their time just working on new ideas. You know, but like, it doesn't need to be that formal. You know, what people need to know is, hey, if I've got an idea, if I've got an issue with a part, with a machine, with any of those things, with a coworker, who do I tell? Do I go straight to the CEO? Do I tell, you know, is there a chain of command that's illustrated? Do I know who I can go with? Because number one, if you're the leader, do you really want everybody coming to you? Especially if you're a bigger size business. Even if you're a 10-person shop, if you've got 9 other people coming to you with every issue, every question, you know, that's not gonna help you sleep better at night. It's not gonna make your life easier. When we talk about being a leader, being a good leader, it's really growing other people. And when you grow other people, it empowers them to be able to do things autonomously and on their own, which makes your life easier as a leader. So if we can establish a chain of command, you know, maybe even if I'm at a 10-person shop, if somebody's got an idea, we could have an idea person, and we could have a mentor, you know, somebody that is defined and is communicated to them that they can go to when they have questions or when they have ideas or things that they want to contribute to the team. You know, maybe for people issues, we don't even have an HR person, but there's somebody, you know, you have a vice president and you have somebody who's, you know, a little more versed in communication. You can send that employee. They should know, hey, if you've got a people issue, you know, go to this person to voice that issue. Because what we don't want is people sharing all of their issues with each other on the line, or we don't want it to be the only topic of conversation during breaks, or if you have a water cooler, around the water cooler, or when people are outside smoking. You don't want the entire thing to be issues that they're telling each other because they feel like they've got nobody else who will listen. The last thing is if I've got a question, who do I ask? And as a leader, you want people asking you some questions, but you don't want everybody asking you everything all the time. One thing that we recommend for leaders, when people do ask you a question, even if you've got that chain of command, you know, one way to empower people further is to respond to them, hey, if I wasn't here or if I was unreachable right now and you had this question, what decision would you make? If you had to make a decision yourself, what decision would you make? Maybe the next time they come to ask you a question, they'll think twice because they may be able to answer that question. They can ask The things that Spartan different. And because you know that using and it helps us as leaders, if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, get to the root of that problem a lot faster. Is it because they just don't know how, and we need to invest, some tools and resources for them, or is it because they choose not to? And if that's the case, they're probably not the right fit for your organization. And then the rocks, or we call them rocks, which is our 90-day goals, but metrics. everybody can have a metric or a couple metrics tied to them. That empowers people and feels like, okay, I'm working towards something here. And when we want to review those metrics, we can review, hey, did this get done by the deadline or did it not get done? No excuses. But if it did not get done, then as a leader, I'm saying, hey, how can I help? How can I help you get it done? Or how can I help you get the next one done? And if they don't want any help and they consistently don't get it done, then it's easier to have that tough conversation with, hey, if you're not going to get these rocks or you're not to get these goals or metrics done, is this the right place for you? And one of the last slides we have here is be open for change, be open to change for the better. If we want to create productive environments where people are thriving, not just coming to work and at 6:59 and leaving at 3:30 exactly, we've got to welcome these ideas. Disagreements not a terrible thing. It shows passion, shows diversity of thought. As long as it's done respectfully, we welcome the best, highest performing cultures we've ever worked with have a lot of disagreement, but they also have a lot of ideas, but there's respectful debate. And then they understand that a decision has to be made sometimes. Not everybody's going to agree with the decision, but the decision is going to be made by the leaders, and they're going to explain the why behind the decisions that are made. And then we're going to move forward because we're one team and because they trust each other and act more as a family than anything else. Being open to change is, there's somebody really close to me right now that works for a manufacturing firm. And she told me that, they were moving offices, and then she told me, we're cutting this and we're adding this. And I asked her the question, a little bit of a, everybody was out on their challenge courses, working as a team. And he told me a quick story, and he talked about the power of connecting people and the power of as leaders being humble enough to listen to people and communicate the why behind things. And I'd met this guy about 5 minutes before, and he said, I've been involved in a lot of combat on naval ships when I was an officer. He said one time we were chasing a ship. I can't even remember where he told me. It might have been the Persian Gulf. He said there was extremely low visibility. It couldn't see more than 100 feet or two in front of our ship because of the fog. So the fog was so thick that their radars were not working. They couldn't figure it out. He said, where is this ship? They're chasing them. He didn't even tell me if they were trying to blow it up or trying to capture people on the ship or what. But it's a pretty tense situation. And he said one of the lowest ranking sailors that was nearby, he said, Captain, can I ask you something? And he said, yeah, who are you? But yeah. And he said, we've got nuclear detection systems or radars that can cut right through this fog. And the captain says, what? He goes, do we have them here? He said, yeah, we have them. They're just not on. And the captain said, well, go get them and turn them on right now. And so the guy went and got them and turned them on. And sure enough, they said that enemy ship was 100 or 200 yards right in front of their ship. But it cut right through the fog, and they were able to do their mission. He said he turned afterwards and asked the sailor, why did you not tell me about this up front? And the sailor said, well, I just assumed that you knew. I mean, you're the captain of the ship. And it sounds stupid, but that's a funny thing that helps them get a little sense of, okay, what's the culture like at this organization? They don't take themselves too seriously, but they're passionate and they're serious about the buffalo concept and flying head on. That's going to get somebody a little more excited about our company than if I were to talk about, well, here's the benefits. You get to sit in this office. Would you like to travel a little bit? When we talk about engaging people who already work for our organization, when we're telling stories of the great things that they're doing, or if somebody figured out or innovated, somebody stayed late one day, somebody covered a second shift in a row, worked till they were exhausted, but provided great results, we've got to be telling those stories to our own people. Maybe this is Employee Appreciation Day stuff. Maybe you've got a newsletter, maybe you've got a top 10 or a social media, or maybe this is just something that once in a while as a leader at a team meeting or at a huddle, you just say, hey, I want to recognize this person for doing something great. Here's what they did. That way it's not people bringing things up. Most people don't want to brag about themselves. So as leaders, the more we can tell those stories of greatness of our own people, the more engaged they're going to be, and the more other people are going to see that and say, hey, I want to get recognized for something good that I do, so I'm going to go out and do something great. And the same with keeping people. I mean, it can be such a challenge productivity-wise to continue to turn over people, because you've got to keep trying to retrain new people. You've got to figure out if they fit. You've got to introduce them to other people. All that stuff takes time, and lost time is lost money. Just about every industry. So stories are a great way, and in my opinion, and we've seen it time and time again, to engage people and to attract talent to your organization. So with that in mind, I'm at my last slide. It's 2:47 is the time that I'm seeing Eastern time right now. I want to let everybody know that I gave you that book recommendation, and the first 3 people to email me the number one takeaway that you had from this webinar, number one thing that you think is going to help you in your business, I'll send you a copy of that book, Extreme Ownership. If you haven't read it, it's an awesome book. It's a really quick read. So if you've liked anything I've said or feel like you can take anything away and use it to help your business, email me what was your number one takeaway as soon as possible, and the first 3 people to email me, I'll send you a copy of Extreme Ownership. So with that in mind, that's what I've got so far today. If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to throw them in the chat right now. If you do not, then I'm going to give you about a minute here. If there are no questions, I just want to say thank you to everybody for attending. And I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us here. I hope you got a lot of value out of this webinar here. And I hope to talk to you again real soon at an NTMA function. So with that, I don't see any further questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar now. Again, my name is Pete Honsberger with CultureShoc. We help organizations become buffaloes in their teams and leaders. We help you guys solve issues. We help you have difficult conversations. And we've got a great 5-part section series for emerging leaders, which we actually come into your organization and perform. Every session of ours is guaranteed, but we've been able to deliver a lot of value to NTMA association members. We'd love to talk or just chat with anybody who's interested after this. So again, you see my email address and my phone number right there. Feel free to contact me anytime, and we'll set something up just to chat casually. So want to thank you guys again. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and continue to be buffaloes. And thank you again to NTMA for letting me do this webinar and helping hopefully to at least provide some answer to the question, is your culture killing productivity? Talk to you next time.